Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for those of you that responded. I like that. So this is a pretty full session. So if there might be some people coming in last minute, so let's be accommodating with seating. If there's space available, let's maybe move or direct people as needed so we don't have anyone standing in the back. This is the last session of the day, so feel free to hold off your naps at least until the first hour is done. I would very much appreciate that. My name is Britt Miller. I am our WISEdata Relationship Manager. I'm joined up here in the front by Adam Miller. He is our trainer and one of our help desk representatives. So you may be very familiar with one or both of our voices. I do apologize for that. Hopefully, again, you can hold off your nap for a little while. And today we are going to be going over WISEdata portal student enrollments. Now, some of the topics we're going to talk about today might sound a little basic. I know we have a lot of new users in the room, so hopefully this will be informative for the new users, but I think there's going to be a lot of really good information for those veterans in the room as well. So why are enrollment records important? Enrollment records are used to showcase services provided to a student at your LEA. So obviously we want to capture that and report it accordingly. This is also used for student accountability and FAY reporting for report cards and assessments. They are required each and every school year. So we want to make sure that we are correctly categorizing and reporting student services provided in each school year. We want to make sure we have entry and exit dates reported correctly for accountability and student responsibility. School responsibility, right? We want to ensure that exiting students, that we don't leave any gaps in service. This is where communicating with other schools, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, is going to be very important. So we want to make sure we're paying attention to the dates being reported and communicating with other schools to the best of our abilities. And we want to make sure that we are not misreporting students. So we're going to talk about no-shows in a little bit. Does anybody know what a no-show is? Yeah, I love that everyone just said yes. So no-shows are students that maybe register or have every intention of showing up, but if you do not provide them service, meaning they do not step foot in your school, they do not put a butt in a seat, they do not receive any service from your educators, they should not be reported in data. And it's really important that we report these students correctly and we remove them when they need to be removed so that you don't get negatively penalized in your reporting as a result.
Is there a guidance of how long?
That would be local policy. Yeah. So the question was, is there any guidance for how long a student is a no-show before they get removed? Generally, this is local policy. If you don't already have a local policy in place or you're not aware of one, I encourage you to bring it up with your administrators. A pretty common scenario that I see is schools usually have like a 2 to 3 week window where if a student hasn't shown up within that time period, then they backdate and exit their enrollment and remove it from WISEdata. So in the agenda today, we're going to go over some WISEdata basics, things in the WISEdata portal that you may or may not already be familiar with that I want to make sure you are aware of and using to the best of your ability with your data reporting and review. We're going to look at enrollment records. We're going to look at the dates that are associated with those records, how we can make sure those dates are being reported accurately. What are effective dates? How do those impact our data? How date inclusion values, what does that mean? How can we verify that those are coming through correctly? Student no-shows, which everyone already confirmed that they are aware of what those are, but let's talk about how we can remove them. And then a couple other scenarios such as expected transfers and a couple errors. I'm also going to show some exports that I think will be really helpful when reviewing your enrollment data. These are going to be downloadable spreadsheets where you can kind of see your whole student population in one big go, as opposed to looking at the student details individually. That'll be really helpful when reviewing prior to snapshot, beginning of the school year, year-end reporting process, things like that. And then lastly, we're going to go over some uncommon scenarios you might encounter that impact student enrollments. So first and foremost, when you log into the WISEdata portal every school year, you are going to be asked to update your contact information. This is what this screen looks like. Please, please, please fill it out correctly, we use this information at DPI to do outreach. I recently called someone that had a phone number listed for their local police department. Right? Good for me to know that number, but I don't live there and I couldn't get a hold of the principal I needed to talk to. So make sure that your phone numbers are correct, your emails are correct. We also have this please include me in WISEdata communications related to option. This is where you can say if you are in your enrollment office, if you work with special education information, you can kind of specify a little bit more. This is helpful because this data, this contact information is not only shown to DPI staff, but it is also available to other schools. So because this session has to do with enrollments, if you are the person primarily in charge of correcting and reviewing enrollment information, if you have someone from another school that wants to confirm a student's dates, exit dates, withdraw dates with you, you want to make sure that they can get a hold of you. Because if they can't get a hold of you, they might not fix the issue and that might have a greater impact on the line. Okay, so we want to make sure that our contact information is updated and correct as possible. This can be updated at any point during the school year. So if you do have an extension that changes or an email, you can come in here at any point and update that. The second part of this is there's snapshot acknowledgements towards the bottom of this contact information. These are basically saying, I acknowledge that I am responsible for reviewing third Friday, September enrollments. I acknowledge that I am responsible for reviewing career education information. Again, it's just another way for us to know that someone at your school or district is having eyes on these topics. And if we have any questions or concerns about what we're seeing, we know who to reach out to. Now, once we're in the WISEdata portal, there is this navigation banner along the top. I'm only going to talk about a few of these topics, the ones that I've highlighted in red here. These are the ones I'm going to go over in this group. But we do have a number of other sessions that were today and tomorrow that we'll talk about a couple of other topics along this banner. But these are going to be the 4 I'm going to touch on today. So we've got the home page, which is going to be that data flow from your student information system to WISEdata portal. Validation messages. This is going to be where you spend most of your time looking over the errors and warnings, how your data needs to be reviewed and corrected in your SIS and resynced. Exports, that's going to be those downloadable spreadsheets I told you about that you can kind of filter as most convenient for your uses to get an overview of all of your students. And then expected transfers, which is something that we want to make sure you are, first off, if you are using it, that you are using it appropriately. And if you are receiving expected transfers, that you're responding to them appropriately. Now, you may have noticed that our blue banner on the top recently had a slight change. We added this resource section. Within this resource section, we have 2 resources available to you, vendor resources and overlapping enrollments. Vendor resources are things that your specific student information system support team can upload and have available for you. So let's say we're talking about overlapping enrollments. If you are unfamiliar with how to resolve an overlapping enrollment, or maybe you don't know how to pull back a no-show student, your vendor could hypothetically have a resource in this section of WISEdata available for you that links directly to their documentation that will instruct you on how to resolve that. Okay, so the thing that sometimes gets a little confusing is I work within the WISEdata portal. I don't have access to your student information system, unfortunately. If I get a ticket that says, how do I fix this in PowerSchool or Infinite Campus or Skyward? I don't know the answer to that. So we really encourage vendors, and we encourage you to ask your vendors to include documentation in this area so that if you run into a situation in the portal that you don't know how to resolve, instead of going to a completely different website, having to dig through all their documentation, find the answer, they can helpfully link it here for you. So that's the first resource available. The second resource is newly implemented. This is going to be overlapping enrollments. Now, prior to about a month or so ago, we had a WISEdata validation message that would showcase for overlapping enrollments, right? There were about 4 different codes that you kind of had to be aware of to know how they impacted. So if you didn't know specifically what you were looking for, they were kind of easy to get lost. We are including them in their own little area here. So you can get one big picture of all your students that have overlapping enrollments that you can go into and resolve individually. So you don't have to dig for that information yourself. Okay, so if you haven't already taken a look at this, please do check it out. You might be surprised what you find in there, but thankfully you've got time to fix things, and hopefully today's session will help you do that. We also recently changed the view of our home screen. How many of you have seen this screen? Okay. Well, I haven't, so sorry. This is new. It used to be more of like a boxy format with tiles. Now we've got this sleek new kind of column look. The same functionality. You're going to be able to see the data when it last when it last flowed from your student information system into WISEdata portal, the date, and then any errors that we ran into along the way. Failure rate is going to be those those records that don't quite make it, right? They're not computing, they're not coming over in a way that we can receive. So same idea that this has always been, just a little bit of a different look for you. If you click on one of these, you'll still be able to get to the Ed5 view. So we click on this out of sync record, we can see specifically what the record is that's out of sync. This is a really great tool for you to use if you're trying to update information and you're not seeing it update in WISEdata portal. You're syncing records and you're like, why is this value not changing? I thought I was doing this correctly. You can come here, check the out of sync record, and it could give you an idea of where exactly that breakdown in data flow is coming from. And then you might have a better idea of where to investigate in your student information system yourself, or you can then reach out to your information system for assistance and maybe why this is happening. Okay, so now we go to that validation messages screen. You should all be very familiar with this. This is those filter options that are available in most of the screens in WISEdata portal. But if you're not already utilizing this validation category filter, I really encourage you to. This was updated a few years ago based on some user feedback, because there are so many people in the portal that have different jobs that they are trying to accomplish. Sometimes it's easy to get lost in the weeds as far as which errors you should be looking at. So we have created a validation category filter for you. So if you are the person that really only handles enrollment data and you only want to see the validation messages that pertain to enrollment records, this is where you can filter down to get that simplified for you, okay? This also works with other data areas. If you are the special education coordinator at your school and you only want to see validation messages that pertain to special education, you could use this filter for that as well. Knowledge-based articles are very, very helpful. How many people in the room are actively using knowledge-based articles? Okay, not enough hands up. All right, I really want you guys to be utilizing these. We put a lot of effort into it. District Deb is one of my best friends, and if anyone is mean to her, don't get to ask any questions tomorrow in uncommon, because I know you're all here. So uncommon, I'm sorry, wow. KBA's knowledge-based articles. These are going to be kind of helpful descriptors as far as what our system is telling you is not wrong. Wrong's the wrong word, but we're going to tell you what the issue with your data that we are perceiving is. Okay, so we're going to give you an error message that says, hey, here's what's going on. Here's why we're flagging your information. If you click into this blue hyperlink here, it's going to open up some of our business logic. We're going to try to provide you with how to fix details. Now, again, I don't have access to your student information system, so I can't provide you a step-by-step, go to this screen, click this field, make sure that this looks like this, okay? Our how to fix is very general and vague in some cases, because we have to be. Everybody handles things a little bit differently, so be a little kind about that. Give us some grace. Right, we're just trying to give a general overview of how to fix the issue without having the specific details in front of us. Which is why we also try to provide examples. Examples are District Deb. We're going to say, from a scenario of someone sitting in a school building, this is how we think this situation would play out. We think District Deb is going to get this error. We think this is going to be her thought process. This is how she's going to correct it. That's why I said be nice to District Deb, okay? We are not in the school district ourselves. We don't always quite understand the perspective of being in a classroom or in a front office. We don't always know the specifics of how easy or difficult it is to correct some of these issues. So again, this is just kind of our best guess. If it's not helpful, please let us know. Okay, we want these KBAs to be as helpful to you, the users, as possible. If you find one that's not helpful, let us know. Work with us on how to make it better. Okay. Now, this is the enrollment record. When you are in a student profile and you open up that enrollment record, there's a lot of information that you can see. Okay, and I want to repeat that. When you are in the student profile and you open the enrollment record, there's this little blue arrow next to the enrollment record right here. I want to make sure you're clicking that so that you can see all this additional information. This is all here for you to use, and it's all collected by WISEdata, so we're going to validate against it. When we throw errors and warnings, it's based on this information. So if you're seeing an error and you don't know why it's throwing, make sure you're opening that record so you can see all the details. When we have an overlapping enrollment, this is generally what it looks like, okay? So we've got two different schools submitting two different enrollments. Now, in this exact scenario, we have the first school that started the student at the beginning of the school year, and then it looks like the student transitioned or transferred to a different school in January. However, that first school did not exit their enrollment. So this is going to throw an overlap. We have a category over here on the right-hand side that says overlapping enrollment. Those are going to show true. This is going to be in that new overlapping enrollment resource page that I showed you earlier. So because these are overlapping, our system cannot handle, our data warehouse cannot handle having two enrollments for one student with overlapping dates. Okay, it's like a one date, one school type system. So what we are going to implement on your behalf is something we call effective dates. That's what's highlighted in blue up here. This effective end date is a system generated date that our system is going to report on your behalf based on what we see in these records. So in this example, our system is saying this school A had the student at the beginning of the year. School B has a new enrollment start on 1/16. By that logic, the first school's enrollment should end 1/15. Okay. That's what our system is doing for you. Now, sometimes we get questions about these effective dates and they're like, yeah, no, we see the date. Everything's right. Why do we have an error? Because that's not your date. That's our date. We want you to submit your own date. So if you see this overlapping enrollment situation, this effective date is something we are doing on your behalf, but it really is still your responsibility to submit an end date for that student's enrollment. So go back to your student information system. Make sure there's an exit date submitted. If there is one, it could just be as simple as resyncing that student. Maybe that date just didn't quite make it to us yet. Okay, so resync that student and look to see after the validation, if a date is in that column, that error will clear. Yeah. Good question. So if the effective end date is on the third Friday. Yeah, obviously. So if the effective end date is on a third Friday, if this effective end date is on the third Friday date, that first enrollment is going to get that student for the third Friday. I'm going to talk about comp dates in a second, but that is a good question. But let's say that you had a student that left the day before third Friday. And that new enrollment start date is on the third Friday. Well, guess what? Our effective end date is the day before third Friday, and you don't get that student your third Friday. Right? So we really want to be paying attention to those dates that we're submitting or not submitting. Again, that effective end date is something our system is reporting on behalf of you because you have not submitted a value yet, but we really want that value to come from your student information system. Yeah. Great question. Anything with SIBA records? No. Yes and no, but we're gonna say no. SEPA records are a different record. They do coordinate with enrollment dates, but as far as this effective end date on the enrollment record, no, it is not actively going to do anything with your. So we talked about the overlapping effective date logic, but we did have a question about the third Friday. If we have an overlap that goes by the third Friday, we can see this example. We have one school that started 9/5, the other school started 9/7. How do we know which one's right? The answer is our system doesn't. Because the first enrollment had an earlier start date, that is the record our system is going to end. So if you have this 9/5 date and you have that student sitting in your seat every day, by the system logic, you're not going to get that student's credit. Because again, it's our system making a best guess, right? We don't know. We don't know where that student is. We don't know who actively gets the credit. That's why it's important for you to be aware of these things so that you can be checking to make sure that your students are being counted correctly. So we have another candy box here in the enrollment section that says included third Friday, true, false. We also have this little category. When you open the enrollment, you can see this count inclusion third Friday here. In this example where this red box is, you are actually sending a present value. But because of our effective logic that's ending your enrollment early, you're not going to get the enrollment as of third Friday value count. Does that make sense to everybody? I know there's a lot of information on this page and a lot of it's kind of, it does this when it doesn't really mean to. So I just want to make sure, do we have any questions about these boxes that are on the screen? Okay, so again, if you are this enrollment that starts 9/5, and you take a look at this and you see that there's an overlapping enrollment and you look that that false value is there for the third Friday, but you know that kid is currently sitting in a seat in your school, we're going to want to resolve that and get that fixed. Another way, so this is how you do it student by student, right? You can go into each student individually, but let's say you're a bigger district. You don't have time to go through 47 students, right? We do have an export available. We have our mass enrollment export and specifically columns M and Q. These are going to show you, your school, SSA, have you submitted an exit date? If that's blank, that means you have not. The DPI SSA effective date, that's that date I showed you from the record. This is our system implementing an effective date on your behalf. So if these columns are not matching up, if you don't have anything here, but there's something here, you have an overlapping enrollment. So this is how you can look at it on a mass scale with all of your students. So you don't have to do it individually. We also have a check for that third Friday count inclusion value, right? We just looked at the dates. Now we have the actual DPI count inclusion. If you have a false, that means your student is not being counted in your third Friday count. If you think that they should be, chances are there's an overlapping enrollment that you need to resolve. Now, I just want to point out really quickly, when you are on the exports page, next to the download button, next to these exports, there is another button called definitions. How many of you have used this definitions or know what these definitions are? 3 hands. Okay, we got 5. All right. Definitions is something that we implemented a few years ago based on user feedback. So when you open these exports, sometimes they're really overwhelming. There's a lot of columns and you don't always know what they mean. So we added this definitions column next to every single download button for the exports, and it's going to define what each of those columns means. So if you opened this mass enrollment export and you didn't necessarily know what DPI count inclusion for third Friday meant, you were like, that's, I have my count inclusion. What does that mean? You could go to that definitions link and it would tell you specifically column AE. This is what it's showing you. Okay. So just a helpful piece of information. Now, student no-shows. These are students that may have registered or had every intention of showing up to your school for service. But they didn't. They could have transferred to another school last minute. They could have moved out of state. They could have decided, I'm gonna homeschool. Okay, it doesn't matter what the situation is. We understand that a lot of districts will pre-enroll, they will preemptively start submitting enrollment records for students based on the intention of attending, correct, right? So if you find that you have a student that decided to no-show, you do need to pull back their enrollment record. Please do not leave it in WISEdata to sit. Okay? We really want WISEdata to be an accurate reflection of services provided to students. So if you did not provide that student service, they should not be reported in WISEdata. Now, some vendors will automatically pull these records back if you check a box in their system. Some vendors, have that capability. They know that like, yep, Ed5 records got to pull back. They'll remove it for you. Some vendors, if you remove the record, will leave it as what we refer to as like a ghost record or an orphan record. And basically that means when you look at the student, you have no connection to them. You're like, this kid's not even in my SIS. How am I supposed to remove a record that I don't have any contact with anymore, right? So what you have to do is you have to use the Ed5 ID number to pull that student back. When we are in the enrollment record, let's say the student Smith was supposed to come to my school. They never showed up. So I deleted them in my local information system. 3 weeks later, I get a phone call for an overlapping enrollment. And they're like, you have a WISE record, you have an enrollment record percent. And you're like, oh, I don't even think it is, right? But look them up in WISEdata. Chances are you'll have the error. You'll see your school's record. Great, now you see the record. If you don't have access in your student information system to that student anymore, you're gonna need to go to this bottom hyperlink. Enrollment Ed5 API. This is going to be what you originally submitted for that original record to our Ed5 system for that student. It's going to populate this window. It's gonna be a little pop-up. At the very bottom, it's going to have this very long Ed5 ID key. This is the key that is like that student's record unique identifier. Your student information system will have a way for you to enter that key to manually pull back that record. If you are not already familiar with where this tool is in your student information system or how this process works, please reach out to your SIS support to figure out how to do this. Any record that gets reported to WISEdata that you need to pull back for whatever reason can be accomplished with an Ed5 ID. Now, I do want to make a point that this Ed5 API view link is specific to each record. So we are specifically looking at the enrollment one. If you have a special education record that you need to pull back, you will go to the special education Ed5 API view. Okay, so they are record specific, but there will be an ID code in each of those pop-up windows for each record, and that's how you can manually pull them back. Yeah, you had a question?
If the student moves out, you have to pull back the record.
If the student moved out, but you provided them even a minute of service, no.
Okay.
No, that's a transfer student, that's an ending of enrollment. And so the enrollment still stays because you still provided service. This is strictly for students that never showed up at your district. You never provided them any sort of service. How many of you have already become familiar with this Ed5 ID process? A couple? Okay. Yeah.
I just have a question. So when you click on that hyperlink, then how do you actually remove them?
So when you click on the hyperlink and you receive this Ed5 ID code, you're going to use your student information system tool to enter this in and remove it. Yes. So as a reminder, WISEdata portal is a receive-only application. We do not pull information from your student information systems. We cannot modify any information. All changes in WISEdata have to come from your student information system. So we're going to enter this number into your student information system. They have a tool, you'll put the number in, they'll pull the record back from WISEdata. Any other questions on the enrollment record or this Ed5 process? Okay. Next, we're going to talk about expected transfers. How many people in the room have experienced expected transfers? ETCs. Okay. So expected transfers is the verbiage we use for a specific exit type. When a student leaves a district or a school and they go to another school, generally you are going to exit that student with a TC, right? Known to be continuing in a WISE agency. On the rare chance that the student doesn't show up where you think they're going to show up, first off, we want you to investigate that with the school, right? If you had a records request from District A, we want you to call them, see if the student's there. If you run into a scenario where you confirm that a student is at another school, but that school does not have that student reporting in WISEdata portal, you have the option to exit the student using the code ETC. This is expected transfer to a new school covered by WISE. This is not something that you're going to use often. It's not something I want you to reach for in your back pocket as you're panicking before semester, okay? This is only to be used when you have confirmed that the student is at another school, but for whatever reason, that enrollment record is not in WISEdata. Doesn't happen often, but it does happen sometimes. You will exit that student with error exit type ETC, and you will be expected to submit the schools that that student is now at. So again, if I'm at District A, I have a student that I know went to District B, I confirm with District B, Smith is there. I can ETC exit my student's enrollment to District B. And you will see it in the student's exit like this. You'll see the exit type here. We're going to indicate the district. And then there's an expected transfer response. Now, this is where it gets a little tricky. What happens more often than not is you will get an error 6578 that says your expected transfer response is missing. And because this is not a very frequently used exit type, I think people aren't really sure what to do with this error when they receive it. What we're looking for is to go to the expected transfers tab. You will see the students listed that have been ETC'd to your district, and you have to provide a response. Your response options, got 4 of them, but most frequently you're going to be using yes, known to be continuing within the school, or no evidence of transfer. Yes, known to be continuing in this school is you at District B acknowledging, yes, this student is here. They are sitting in my class. I don't know why my WISEdata enrollment isn't pushing up. There might be a vendor issue. There might be an issue with that specific student, but it is a way for you to take accountability for that student to say, yes, they are here in my school. What we see happen, unfortunately, is someone will ETC a student's enrollment to a school, and then that school will get the error and they'll say, I have no idea who this kid is. It could be that that student told their district, their prior district, yeah, we're going to transfer to District B. But if that District B doesn't have that student, if they've never provided service to that student, they have no idea who that kid is, you're going to respond to this as no evidence of transfer. That is going to send accountability for that student back to the previous district. So the most common scenario we see this in, unfortunately, is with dropouts. If you're ever reviewing a list of dropouts and you see a kid's name listed that you have no idea who that is, you've never even heard of that kid, they're not in your student information system, most likely it's coming from an ETC. So it's very important that you use the ETC appropriately, right? We're only using it if we are confirming a student is at another school and they're not in WISEdata. And B, that you are responding to your ETC questions. How many of you have never even considered looking at this expected transfer stat? Yeah. So please be aware that that is what it is for. If you have students listed We encourage you to communicate to the school that's indicating. It could be that they have information that you don't. Maybe the kid hasn't started yet. Maybe they thought they were at your district. You guys can try to figure out where the student is. Maybe they moved to your district, so they're a resident student. You had no idea, right? So please communicate with each other, right? We want to be collaborative. We want to work together for our students and make sure that they're receiving their educational services. It will show you who you submitted it to. This is investigating. We'll tell you who submitted it, so you can reach out and provide you their contact information. But we want to make sure that you are aware of this screen and that you are checking it periodically. You will get the error on the validation messages screen, but again, things can sometimes get lost in those lists. So maybe like once a week, once a month, however frequently you think you need to check this, make sure you're checking it. Because we don't want you to get dropouts as a result of something that you weren't aware of. Yeah.
How long do students stay in this list? So let's say on June 1st, I added B, say thinking they go to B, is that, which then the ultimate 24-25 school year, does it stay in 23-24?
Yeah, so how long do students stay in here? So this is year specific. So if the student was reported as an ETC in 23-24, they're gonna stay in the 23-24 school year, okay? So they will stay here. They basically are going to stay here until that ETC is changed to something else. So even after you provide a response, you can see there's another column here that says expected transfer response. You'll see your response there. But until the other school changes the ETC to something else, the student is going to remain on this page. And the idea behind this is that the ETC is meant as like a short-term solution, right? They're ETCing, you're communicating with each other. It's a way for you to get accountability when you should and when sending it back if you shouldn't. But the idea is that if you say, yeah, students here, that means that that district can then update to a TC once you get your enrollment submitted correctly. Or if you say no evidence of transfer, then they can change their ETC to an ODO while they investigate where that student actually is. So it's a short-term solution, but it's something that doesn't happen super often, so it kind of gets forgot about. So I want to make sure that you're aware of this because this is what results in dropouts and overlapping enrollments quite frequently. How many of you are looking at this screen right now? All right. Error 6719. This is a pretty hot topic. If you have a student that moves out of state, transfers to private, something like that during the school year, you exit them appropriately, you're good to go. Now, let's say that that student comes back, right? They moved out of state for a couple months, and then they decided to come back for the end of the school year. WISEdata sees a student's enrollment over a period of the reporting year. So we want you to update that TOS that you originally entered to a TC because by our system's perspective, that student is continuing in a WISE school. That doesn't seem to make a lot of sense at the local level though, right? So your student information system should have a way for you to keep that TOS that you originally submitted. A lot of vendors have entry, exit notes, things like that, so you can keep that information locally. But for WISEdata, you have to remember that we are looking at a student's enrollment over a period of time. So even though they left during that period of time, if they also returned, we are going to see that as a continuation. I know it's a little hard to wrap your head around, but we get this question a lot, so I want to make sure that we're all clear on it and that I'm explaining it in a way that makes sense, so you understand when you see this what we're asking. So those were kind of the enrollment topics that I wanted to bring up. Those were things that we commonly see on our customer service team. Those are questions we commonly get. Overlapping enrollments, no-shows, how do we review those expected transfers, how to look at those records to make sure we're getting the most out of that, right? Now we're going to talk about a couple uncommon scenarios that we also get questions on pretty frequently. Yeah. On the website?
Yeah, a website where you can pull down the slide. so I'm just looking at it closer. It might look different than what's up there. Okay, more information up here.
What's on the website is like, but yes, to answer your question. Okay, thank you for pointing that out, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the formatting is a little wonky on that slide on the website, so yes, we will definitely take a look at that, thank you for letting us know. Okay, so uncommon scenarios, these are things that come up that are not super frequent, but again, things we want to make sure that you understand how to report accordingly. We already talked about expected transfer. Enrollment types. There are 3 different enrollment types that you submit your students under. We have primary. This is going to be most of your students. This is the student that you see for 7 hours a day. You're the primary provider of service. We also have coursework enrollments. These are students that are getting up to 2 courses at your school, but you are not providing their primary service. So these are things like a middle school student that might be taking a high school math class. They go to the high school for an hour a day. This might be a private school student or a choice school student that is going to a public school for 2 classes a day or a week. Those would be coursework enrollments. PPP, parentally placed private students, those are those special education students that you are servicing at the district, but they are receiving their primary service from a private school. So there's 3 different types. Sometimes not having the correct enrollment type will cause an overlapping enrollment. So if you are a public school and you have another public school and one of you should have a coursework enrollment, but you're both reporting as primary, you're going to get an overlapping enrollment. So something to pay attention to is that enrollment type value. Exit types. We have a whole list of exit types. Some of them are known to be continuing and some of them are not known to be continuing. This is going to contribute to your dropout calculation. So please be aware when you are updating exit types for student enrollments that you know which is which. TOS, move out of state, is a known to be continuing exit type. Those students are not going to count as dropout. INM, international move, is a not known to be continuing exit type. That will count as a dropout. Okay, so make sure that when you are exiting students, that you know which is which. And if you have questions, yeah, we can help you answer those on the help desk.
Why is international a dropout? We have many families coming to our district who come and study, the parents come and study at the medical college for 2 years, go back to India or Japan, wherever. How can we have an elementary kid coming as a dropout? That doesn't make sense to me.
2 things. Elementary school students don't count as dropouts.
Okay.
Dropouts are from 7th to 12th grade.
I still live about the older kids.
The older kids, yeah, so that's a great question. The question is, why is international move counting as a dropout when you know those students are continuing their service in another country? In that example, if you go to our exit type webpage, we do have a little asterisk that says, if you know a student is continuing in another country, you can use the TOS exit for another. The reason why the international move is not going to be continuing is because generally when a student leaves the country, we don't always get a records request. We're not always in communication with the school the student is going to attend in another country, right? It's just a harder process for that communication to know that the student is indeed continuing their educational service. If you are able to confirm the student is continuing in another country, then you can use the TOS. But that's why it's important to know which exit types count as continuing and which ones don't.
Does that apply to students that go to India for maybe 2 months? I know.
So what you're more so referring to is, what's the word? Students on extended leave. Okay, it's not on this slide, but that is a great question. If you have a student that leaves for a month or 2, maybe their parents are on sabbatical, maybe they're on a mission trip, maybe they're going to a wedding and they're going to be gone for a month and then they come back. Okay, that is called a student on extended leave. It's not on this slide, but we do have a webpage on our uncommon situations page for this. Basically, you as a district have the choice to either exit that student while they're gone and then re-enroll them when they return. Or you can keep them enrolled and just mark them as not receiving services for that time period of those days. It is a local decision, so you get to make that call, but we do have information on our website if you kind of want to investigate both sides. Yeah.
Thank you.
Guys, this is the wrong session. Students and treatment programs are a little different. There's a lot more dependable factors in that. The type of treatment facility, whether the student's still receiving service while they're there, how they replace theirs. There's a lot that goes into that. That might be a more specific conversation. But that does play into the next part of this. That's a good segue. Compassion exit. How many of you know what the compassion exit is? How many of you use the compassion exit? Well, first off, I'm very sorry for those of you that are raising your hand. The compassion exit is a new exit that was introduced a year or two ago, and it is basically a way for districts to remove students so that they do not get negatively penalized for unforeseen circumstances. So there are 4 situations when a compassion exit is used. Let me just give a time check really quick. Okay. The first is, the first 3 scenarios are basically for students that need to be permanently removed from your reporting due to unforeseen terrible circumstances. So those are going to be students that are terminally ill, students that are abducted and presumed dead, and students that were removed by ICE. Okay, unfortunately, those are situations that we hope to never experience, but we do. We understand that that is not something that is within a student or a district's control, so we don't want you to be negatively impacted by any of those 3 scenarios. So we have a compassion exit for that reason. The 4th scenario that was recently introduced kind of ties back to what the question was students that are in day treatments or some sort of treatment facility. If you have a student that is leaving your district to receive treatment for mental health or addiction purposes, please submit a help ticket. Talk to our customer service team because you may be eligible for this compassion exit scenario. Again, we want students to be at the best of their ability, right? We want them to be at the top of their game. If they are leaving school to better themselves in some way, whether it's an addiction treatment or a mental health facility, like a day treatment, we don't want you or them to be negatively penalized for that.
Is that regardless if they come back?
It is with the intention of coming back.
Okay.
Yeah, the compassion exit in that scenario is with the intention of coming back. So if you think you have a situation that falls under that category, that scenario, please submit a help ticket. And we will have someone on our customer service team talk through that with you and see if that is the appropriate response. There are a number of other reporting scenarios that you could qualify for, like the extended leave or the students at home or hospital use or things like that. So we just want to make sure that we are reporting accurately. But if you think that that's something that you may fall under, please let us know and we can help investigate that with you.
Do they have a job record?
If they're expelled with an IEP, they are still eligible for services, so their services should be, their enrollment should stay up.
So no,
Okay, we're gonna move forward because I'm running out of time here. I know I like to talk a lot. Homeschool students. Homeschool students are not reported in WISEdata. Even if they are a homeschool student taking up to 2 courses at your district or your school, you do not report them in WISEdata. Simple statement, done. Open enrolled students. If you have a student that open enrolls to your school, if you provide even a minute of service to that student, you are now accountable for that student. If they decide a week later they don't want to come to your district anymore and they drop out, that's your student, that's your dropout unless they go somewhere else. Okay, even if they are not your resident, if you accept them as an open enroll student, you are accountable for them. Yeah.
If you have a student that goes to, an open enrolled student going to Challenge Academy, if they dropped out of the Challenge Academy, then they are the home student. correct?
Wow, that is a complicated question. Challenge Academy is one of my next topics. I'm gonna come back to that, if that's okay.
Oh, right there.
Yeah, right there. The only caveat to the open enrollment is if you have a student that open enrolled at the beginning of a school year, yet they no show, right? We talked about this. They don't show up. Even if you've accepted them as an open enrolled student, if they do not show up for service, accountability goes back to the resident district. That is the only time that happens. So if they leave in the middle of the school year, they're your student. If it's at the beginning of the year and they never show up, the accountability goes back to the resident district. RVA, Rural Virtual Academy. If you have RVA students, please be aware of what type of 6603 contract you have. Are you affiliated or are you invested? This is going to determine whether the RVA reports your students to WISEdata or whether you report your students to WISEdata. Most often, the home district, the resident district is going to report RVA students themselves. RVA will communicate with you, their attendance, their classes, all of that good stuff, but you are most likely going to be responsible for reporting them to WISEdata. But it does depend on your contract, so if you aren't sure, check if you're invested or affiliated. Circling back to Challenge Academy. Challenge Academy students are reported by their resident district. It does not matter where they were prior to Challenge Academy attendance. They could have been at a private school. If they are your resident district, you are responsible for reporting them while they attend Challenge Academy.
I've never heard that.
Challenge Academy will be communicating with districts if they have students registered that are living in your residency.
Yeah, they said it's.
So if you've never heard of a Challenge Academy student at your district, chances are you haven't had one. When students register and get enrolled in Challenge Academy, they fill out paperwork that tells them where their home address is. Challenge Academy takes that information and they notify the district with that home address to let them know that they have a student that's a resident of theirs that needs to be reported that's attending Challenge Academy. Lastly, academic credential types. These are going to be those HFC students and the diploma type that gets reported with them when they complete high school. This is a big ticket item that we do for data quality. A lot of schools, whether it's a SIS vendor issue or whether it's just rolling the records over appropriately, we often get the diploma type missed in the credential. So you send us the HSC, you send us a diploma record, but you don't tell us what type of credential it is. So we do have an export for that. Make sure you're paying attention. If you get any of those data quality calls from staff, most likely what we're referring to. And that's all I have. So I think we do have a little bit of time. We've got about 20 minutes. For any questions we have that either pertain to what I talked about or didn't at all, it's kind of a free for all while that's now at the end of the day. So anybody have any questions? Yeah.
I want to go back to the homeschool kids.
Okay.
So currently in line, the people count, we have to count minutes. And also, I need these kids registered, we got them registered part-time. So they are enrolled, and so it does go to WISE. But if they're enrolled part-time, is that wrong?
Pupil count is different than WISEdata.
Yeah.
They are reported separately. So a homeschool student would count in the pupil membership count,
Right.
but for WISEdata reporting by count.
Okay, but they're still there in WISE data.
Well, are you a part of the pilot program?
Not yet.
Okay,
No, I'm not.
then you shouldn't, well, then you shouldn't be reporting the WISEdata right now. Shouldn't be reporting homeschool students in WISEdata.
You said to.
They're not, they should be WISEdata.
That's what I needed to know.
For that wise, that page.
Yeah, so, if you go to any of our deep web pages and you type in the upper right hand search bar, uncommon, hit search, it'll be the first or second. I think it used to be the first, we got bumped down, I don't know how. It'll be the second search option, uncommon, reporting uncommon student scenarios. And then if you hit the index at the top, you'll be able to see students on extended leave. And before I go to any more questions, I'm so sorry. If you wouldn't mind taking the time to scan the QR code, just let us know how this session went, if it was helpful, if I was funny. We would very much appreciate that. Yeah. So, question for Challenge Academy. You basically, you should have a schedule recorded, but it's kind of at your discretion how you want to do that. So ways you can either try to figure out what person you need for taking this one. It's just or you can kind of create like placeholder that's just a challenge of editing. So the photos on same channel. I have some general generic studies within it, but in there, in line. So you'll get paid for my, here you go. It's the feeder. I thought that was you. Oh. Thank you. Yes. Yes, I'm okay. Yes, I'm sure. That's where the state's very elegant. So definitely. Yeah. Yeah, so I need to remember. Yeah. Together, what's the KG and. And then you get the medication.
I love when
I'm. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so yeah. Yes, you guys have had. You have. Now you're. Yeah. I know. Grab it. It's great for this. Good job. But yeah. Yeah, it was job.
Yeah. Yeah, I. Yeah. Oh, somebody. One person for everything, but. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I know, it does. I know, and I love, like, I love listening to this, talks about it. So, you know, it's a challenge. I mentioned before, my kids were very fit.
I was like that name, I know that name, one of it.
They sent it over. My oldest, even up. No, we had some other times. I'm not sure. Like that. I don't know if you. Everybody reminds me, I used to hear it in sleep. I mean, that's it. That's what they've been saying. So
It's like, it wasn't, I was like, why don't I know it wasn't to do with the school, with, you know, everybody. They deal with you when they're really small, but like, nobody.
No. Yeah, that was so good, yeah. Okay, Stephen is 30, Nathan is 20. Yeah, middle one's married. He's got.